Greetings, adventurers! I come with another D&D story for you, so go ahead and sit down anywhere in this tavern. As you may recall, I've had several players in my D&D group, yet only 3 have been the most consistent. The stories about this group will be told under the playlist Quest for the Stars, so be sure to check that out. With that out of the way, let's talk about player number 2, a dwarf barbarian going by the name of Frau Frau. Before I go on, I need to give you some background as to how we got to this point. You may recall the party started out in the prison, and the first 2 sessions consisted of them trying to get out. After a couple more sessions, I felt things weren't working out and decided to call it quits. But a year later, I felt that the story wasn't finished, and I decided to contact my players. There were 3 of them at the time, and I got in touch with the rogue and the ranger of the party, and they both decided to take another crack at it. But the promise that I wasn't going to punk out like last time, I worked very hard to get the next session going. The party consisted of the duck and the ranger for a few weeks. You may remember that the duck was from outer space, and I gave him the stat block of the eagle entry of the monster manual, with the added bonus of taking 10 on swim checks. Taking 10 is basically allowing a player to automatically get a 10 on his base roll before modifiers, and removes the risk of potential danger of rolling a natural 1. The only condition I put in place in order to pull it off was that an enemy couldn't threaten the duck by being in an adjacent space. Sadly, this never came up, and until other abilities came along, it was my actual favorite. The ranger left for personal reasons on the same night that Frou Frou and the party bard were introduced. So this video will recount the tale of this trio, though I do have to note that the bard left some time afterwards. So about a few sessions. The bard was there for a couple of months, I think, or more, I think. I think it was for half a year at the most. But anyway, yeah, on with the show. Frou Frou was played by a new player who was more experienced with 5th edition D&D. As you may recall, the version we were playing was 3.5, but the player was willing to learn. His character was a dwarven barbarian named Frou Frou, who was working in the local tavern in the Druid Grove. Yeah, alcohol in this world is seen as a bounty that could be made from nature itself, so a tavern was approved. Frou Frou was introduced when the party rogue/duck checked out the growing crowds outside of a tavern, and he saw a dwarf in overalls throwing 3 men out of the tavern. A brawl had happened inside, and the archdruid of the grove happened to be around and asked what was going on. The 3 men that were thrown out protest that they were cheated in a game by a wandering minstrel, who then shows up and denies the whole thing. Frou Frou took the minstrel's side, and the archdruid dismissed the whole incident and went on his way. But the archdruid was stopped by a peasant woman who wanted to shake his hand for all the hard work he's been doing. When he shook her hand, the archdruid felt a powerful curse enter his body as the arm he was using to shake her started to shrivel up. The woman cackles maniacally, and before the party could properly react, she was quickly torn apart by the archdruid's animal companion, a dire ape named Samson. The archdruid gets taken away, and just then one of the druidic leaders working for the archdruid finds Isaac, which is the name of the duck, as we said on the last video. The bard, named Miguel, and Frou Frou. She tells them that the archdruid was not under just any ordinary curse, but it was actually mummy rot. There was no cleric in the grove powerful enough to remove the curse, so this leader, an elven woman named Jade, instead charged the party with finding a plant which can be magically infused to make a cure. With the promise of gold that they managed to find the plant, Frou Frou and Miguel officially joined the party. Now there's a lot going on here, so I'll go ahead and explain everything. First of all, mummy rot is normally a powerful curse that mummies carry and can inflict on anyone unfortunate enough to get hit by them. It's a curse that acts as a disease, and after a minute of incubation, a 1d6 is rolled. That is a 1 6-sided die. And the number rolled is how many points of constitution the victim loses. Unlike the other diseases in the game, this d6 is rolled each day when either the curse is broken or the victim dies of constitution loss. The victim can roll a fortitude save each day to prevent the damage, but since this is a powerful curse, it does not remove the affliction. It simply delays it for another day. And if the victim's constitution reaches 0 because of the mummy rot, they die and their entire body turns to literal dust. The woman who shook hands with the Archdruid was actually a Cancer Mage, which is a prestige class from the book About Darkness, a 3.0 supplemental book for mature audiences that explores the concept of evil and introduces evil spells and villains. And since necromancy was common in this kingdom, it was plausible that she had found a necromancer and a mummy, and caught mummy rot so she could infect the enemies of necromancy, the Druids of Rosewood Grove, which is the party's current location. Now we get to the purpose behind this video. Frou Frou is one of the characters I DM'd for that has lived the longest. I've been playing with him for a few years now, and he has not died once. And for the reason of being one of my players for such a long time, I feel like he deserves a bit of the spotlight. Before I continue with this, he deserves the spotlight before I continue with the story, which will be posted in a future video. Anyway, like any dwarf, he lived in the mountains close to a fertile valley. He was raised by a clan of brewmasters and learned how to pick the best grains, lichen, potatoes, and fungi, distilling and fermenting techniques, and most of all, lots of cleaning and hauling. Like any dwarf, he valued tradition and history, but his passion for brewing and his curiosity made up his driving force. His dream was to revolutionize his craft to the chagrin of his elders. Did I mention that he has a few levels in the druid class? Because that explains how he can pick the best plant life to brew his drinks. But mainly, he is a barbarian who joined the Bear tribe when he left his home and arrived in Rosewood Grove. He was a Bear Totem Barbarian, which sacrifices some of the barbarian's abilities like fast movement in favor of feats and abilities that let him grapple better. His player said it was the best one for his background as a tavern owner, so of course I allowed it. No matter how unruly NPC patrons would get, 1 or 2 grapple checks were usually enough to shut them up. The final touch on this Bear Barbarian was a request from his player. He requested a specific feat from 5th edition, and in order to help him get situated in 3.5, I read it and approved it. This feat is called Tavern Brawler. Tavern Brawler was slightly modified by me, but it basically goes like this. His strength score goes up by 1 point. He's specialized in improvised weapons, which include, but are not limited to, table legs, broken bottles, actual chairs, heck, even the kitchen sink, and many others. Just anything he could grab and use as a weapon. In the bar brawl, he could use it without penalty. His unarmed strikes, which could mean his punches and kicks, they deal 1d4 damage, and if he hits with an unarmed strike, he gets a free action to make a grapple check. Now you recall what I said about the Bear Totem Barbarian? Well, that's it basically goes pretty well with this feat. Now, in hindsight, given the Bear Totem Barbarian, this feat could be seen as an error on my part, since it could break the balance of the game. But what build in 3.5 doesn't at this point? And besides, I honestly haven't had a problem with it. Up until Frou Frou joined the party, the players had to be stealthy and cunning around bigger and tougher enemies, and having a tank they could hide behind was a win-win for everyone. Plus, later on, Frou Frou had foregone his unarmed strikes in favor of other weapons, like great swords, clubs. I think that's it, but he actually, one time he picked up a maul. A great maul, actually, I think that's what it was called, which are actually used by Goliaths, which is a race of humanoids that live in the mountains as well. But if there's an enemy that needs to be thrown away, or if there's a giant that picks on the party, Frou Frou is the man for the job. Thanks for watching, and join me next time to see what the party does to save the Archdruid. Have a good night, everybody.